It seems like only yesterday one pirate software drama finished, and now we're here, and we have another one. So I logged into YouTube today, opened it up, and apparently everyone in the mother decided to brew a shitstorm about pirate software. Apparently killing the Stop Killing Video Games initiative. So I've seen plenty of YouTubers already talking about it. By the time I'm recording that, I've already seen Asmongold talk about it, Legendary Drops talk about it, and the YouTuber that we're gonna be watching today. How do you say that? Endymion? Am I saying it right? I'm sorry if I'm misspelling your channel name. Those are three channels that I really enjoy watching, and I usually agree with what they're saying, but in that case, I cannot really fully agree with them. And also, I can't say that I fully agree with pirate software. So I'm gonna give my 2 cents about it. I'm gonna react to the first Endymion video about the situation. Let's see.
That is in need of serious help that has also unfortunately been sabotaged by another YouTuber. And now things are getting to the point where this needs to be fixed, or games as we know it could be cooked in the future. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. This is important, and after I explain it all, I'll tell you how one creator is also threatening the integrity and future of video games by damaging this movement through hubris and a lot of misinformation. So let me catch you all up on all of this in case you don't know what's going on. So, Stop Killing Games is an initiative started by a YouTuber named Accursed Farms. Here's him on screen here with one of his recent videos on this very subject. So Farms is the originator of this movement and has pushed this in order to hopefully collect 1 million signatures from people, specifically in the European Union, to stop what's going on here. Farms claims in his video that the initiative that matters the most is this one on screen here, as you're seeing, called Stop Destroying Games, which needs its signatures before July 31st, 2025 to be pushed legally so that the movement can be officially recognized in Europe. The mission statement is, as it reads here, this initiative calls to require publishers that sell or license video games to consumers in the European Union or related features and assets sold for video games they operate to leave said video games in a functional, playable state. Specifically, the initiative seeks to prevent the remote disabling of video games by the publishers before providing reasonable means to continue functioning of said video games without the involvement from the side of the publisher. Essentially, there has been a very damaging practice for many years now, where games are sold, even to this day, that do not have their online services functioning as specifically detailed on either their store pages, or in the case of physical media, where they explicitly state that the game you're buying has online features when you buy it. Like, for example, look at Mass Effect 3's cover and back, and you can see the game has online functionality listed, which, as of this video going live anyway, thankfully Mass Effect 3 does indeed still work to play online with your friends if you want to. However, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is the HD remasters of the trilogy, does not have that multiplayer intact, which is very unfortunate. But a good recent example of this Stop Killing Games initiative being important would be The Crew from Ubisoft. As seen here, in 2023, that game is no longer playable at all because Ubisoft just decided to delist and turn the game servers off. The point here is that if this initiative gets its 1 million signatures, the European Union has to legally discuss and possibly even enact a law to protect the online longevity and preservation of these games forever. But as Accursed Farm showed in his more recent video on this, as seen here, almost every single thing that Stop Killing Games has tried to fix when it comes to game preservation has been stopped or stalled indefinitely by all kinds of reasons, by all kinds of politicians. One of those, as you can see in Canada, that the province leaders refuse to act on it because they believe that they will have little to no impact on the broader industry and so on. This means that the preservation of online games is currently in a no-win scenario across the board, and the likely outcome is that video game companies will continue to enact their negligence of these online games for seemingly the rest of time, putting the sustainability and the integrity of their online modes, which many of these games are sold with the sole purpose of their online modes being the focus, now getting put into jeopardy by this mass refusal to respect the consumer rights or lack thereof. Here's a massive Google document with hundreds of games compiled by Stop Killing Games to show just how many old and even newer games are at jeopardy of this anti-consumer tactic. As you can see, many games are a part of this, and even games like Call of Duty or Helldivers 2, while sure right now are populated and are running, they could technically one day just delist those games in say 10 or maybe 20 years and then render all the cosmetics.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel movement like that is important. I really like that someone started to talk about it. The video will probably get into it. I'm not gonna talk a lot right now. I will let him explain more.
Progression, or anything that they want pretty much to just cease to exist, and you can't do anything about it, because there's no consumer protection laws in place to stop such a thing from happening right now. You actually don't realize at first just how badly this affects the games that you know and love. I already brought up Ubisoft, which is obviously a big problem in this, but even Activision Blizzard is to blame as well. As Accursed Farm cites here in Activision Blizzard's user agreement, which reads, and no, I'm not kidding, Blizzard reserves the right to terminate this agreement at any time for any reason or for no reason, with or without notice to you. That means that any game that Activision or Blizzard makes, from Call of Duty, Diablo, or literally anything else, they legally do not need to inform you when they decide to sunset a game forever or remove its online components. And whether you bought any of their games with the sole intention of using that game for their online reasons, well, you're screwed now. Because you also can't play these games unless you agree to this agreement, which states that they can do whatever they want with it. And that's what Stop Killing Games is fighting against. It's not necessarily the you'll owe nothing and be happy discussion, though that is part of it as well. It's more so that this movement simply wants games to not be abandoned by publishers or studios even long after development has ceased. They want these games to exist forever, be playable, so anyone can enjoy them, no matter how big or small the fan base or the game is. As of me also making this video, the petition is currently sitting at 503,000 votes, so 50% or so, which is, they need more, so again, if this video...
Okay, yeah, they might need more, but you need to bear in mind that this is 500,000 people who heard about it and are supporting the cause. So even if you fail this is still a good thing. And if you fail this, and I really hope that's what's going to happen if that initiative fails. If you fail this, you already have 500,000 supporters. So you can work on that, revise it, and gain more support with better thought out initiative, because I feel like that's the main issue with that. And even the original YouTuber that started it, he even was saying in the video introducing the initiative that he literally had no idea what he was doing when he started it out. He just thought that something needs to be done, and then he started doing things and figuring it out as it goes. And it's a very good thing that he did that, but I feel like he really came unprepared. And if that fails, now he has a bit more experience. Now he knows what he's doing. Now, if that fails, he can do this type of movement again, but this time be more prepared for it.
Video can hopefully convince you, and you also live in the European Union, please go sign this petition. I'll leave a link in the description as well to the campaign so you can sign it as well. Even the Mass Effect community has also rallied to join this campaign because this anti-consumer law and problem could eventually remove that online component of Mass Effect 3, which, like I said, is still being played to this day by quite a few people. However, what was weird was I recently checked the Mass Effect Reddit and the Stop Killing Games thread was actually locked by moderators, which was confusing to me because what's problematic exactly about trying to save video games? I mean, okay, it is Reddit, so who are we kidding? But even then, look, the preservation of older games or even current ones is important, because we already have seen how this negligence of games has been playing out. Hundreds of games are no longer playable anymore. It's even something happening to media like TV or movies too. Shows like Star Trek Prodigy were removed, as was Turner and Hooch on Disney+. Some shows got removed, like Raised by Wolves from HBO Max, but then they also got saved at least by other streaming services like Roku. But the point of all of this is that content under the current meta does not value the importance of that content as much as they should. However, this is where this initiative goes from being righteous to entering, nuclear problematic territory. So, Pirate Software, who's also a YouTuber and a developer, here's him on screen in case you don't know who he is, has been under massive backlash for essentially killing the Stop Killing Games movement through misinformation and fear-mongering according to, well, pretty much everyone that is involved with this. So, Stop Killing Games began as a thing in April 2024 by Accursed Farms. Then Pirate Software made a video 10 months ago that has since come back to, I'll just say it how it is, it's biting him in the ass, guys, and has caused a lot of controversy for him. I can't show you the video of his, unfortunately, because I'm pretty sure that Pirate Software will copyright strike my channel if I do, so I apologize about that, but I can still tell you what he says in it at least. Basically, Pirate said that the movement was too vague in what it wants to achieve, which I disagree since it's pretty obvious what it wants. It just simply wants...
Yeah, it is pretty obvious what it wants, but what it wants is also too vague. It's too spread out for what it is.
Games to be preserved so that if you buy a game with an online mode or component, that mode works and so on. It's really easy to understand, but anyway, Pirate also says that the movement is unrealistic and cannot be implemented across the industry. He claims that the movement sets a bad precedent and the push for this movement is pointless and a waste of energy in his opinion, and that the push will only distract politicians from more pressing matters that in his opinion deserve to be given attention to instead of video games being preserved, which is kind of crazy. Pirate also states in his video,
Okay, let's go back a little bit.
Works and so on. It's really easy to understand, but anyway, Pirate also says that the movement is unrealistic and cannot be implemented across the industry.
Yes, cannot be implemented across the industry. And here is the biggest point I agree with Pirate Software with. He does have a fairly unique situation and in the YouTube scene, because he's one of the few YouTubers, gamers and developers at the same time. Not a lot of people have all the experiences that he has. I'm also a little bit of a developer myself. I never published anything. I do make games as a hobby, and his biggest issue is with live service games and MMOs, and it is a big problem. It is a big problem for a couple of reasons. One of the, I feel like, most important actually is for security reasons. We all know that there is usually no point in reinventing the wheel. If you have a resolution to a problem that works good enough, you can implement that solution on multiple things that will face the same problem. So things like protection from bots, scammers, things like that are probably the same in all live service and MMO games from the same company. So imagine the situation where, for example, Overwatch 1, which is discontinued right now, it will probably share some security, but maybe even most security services with all the other games. So if they publish the server code along with all the security features in it, people like hackers, spammers, people like that will be able to disassemble it, analyze it, and use it to attack other games, like for example WoW or Overwatch 2, which probably share some security features. And even if they don't share the same security features with the same security backdoors and vulnerabilities, they kind of share the same DNA, right? It's like it will be like a grandfather version. It could be really helpful for hackers, botters, and spammers to attack other games from the same companies, which is a bad thing. Like, imagine if you have a bank account and your bank is required every time they update the security systems to publish the previous one. Would you feel safe having an account in that bank? Would you not be outraged about that? And that's one of the issues. The other issue is with some implementation, potentially, because servers are not just giant, more powerful computers. Servers are built completely different from PCs that we have at home. They have absolutely different infrastructure, and the programs that run on servers is written differently because it's working on different hardware, different equipment. So there might be further issues with implementing server-based programs to allow them to run on normal PCs. That might be a little bit of a lesser problem, but it's still a problem, and it would fall on the developers in that case. They would have to write two completely different versions of the server-side software. And it is a big problem. We actually had a problem like that in early consoles, because these days there are plugins and things that assist with converting one version of a game or any kind of program into other platforms. So it's fairly easy to write the same game and then port it to a PC, PlayStation and Xbox, for example. But before that, back in like PS1 era, before that as well, I'm pretty sure in PS2 era at the beginning it was the same, maybe even the whole PS2 era. You actually had to write a completely different game from scratch because it was running on completely different hardware. So yeah, those are two problems that I find, and I feel like that's actually what Pirate Software meant when he said that it's not viable.
He claims that the movement sets a bad precedent, and the push for this movement is pointless and a waste of energy in his opinion.
I don't like this statement though. I feel like this movement is an important movement. It's a good thing that it is happening, but I do feel that it's undercooked.
And that the push will only distract politicians from more pressing matters that, in his opinion, deserve to be given attention to instead of video games being preserved, which is kind of crazy.
And I don't feel like it's crazy, honestly. Because yeah, if you bring a humongous issue, because this initiative is a very wide fishing net, trying to catch too many fishes, basically. And yes, because it's so wide, it's trying to do too many things. Jack of all trades, master of none. So yeah, there is some right in what he's saying, actually.
Pirate also states in his video that the movement is too broad and will only damage live service games in the long run. He also cements his opinion that he does.
And yes, it will damage live service game in the long run because of the issues I said before.
Not support the movement, and that it's utterly pointless and that nothing will be changed. Even in his video, he posted a very lengthy questions and answers part in his comment section as to why he doesn't support this. One of these questions reads, "This won't even affect live service games, read the fact." And Pirate would respond, "I did, and the fact does not change the potential damage done to live service games." Under the current...
Also, mate, the way you're reading FAQ is not very advertising friendly, to say the least. I'm not even sure if I'm not gonna have to censor that.
Current initiative, all games would need to be made into a playable state at end of life. This puts a massive extra financial burden on specifically live service games while incentivizing single player ones. Why would I spend extra money building a live service distributable server for End of Life? I wouldn't. I would just make single player or local play games as they cost less to produce under this scenario. For those that say good and dislike live service games, that's not a good position. Your personal dislike of live service games should not control developers on what they could or should make.
Okay, on that point, yes, I kind of agree. Because if you look at a game like Helldivers, for example, how would you make it playable after the developers shut the servers down? Like, first of all, it would kind of defeat the point, because Helldivers is a truly live service game. Without the developers continuing the live service part of the game, who will decide which planets are attacked? Because right now the developers are doing that, right? If you had to make Helldivers playable after the servers are being shut down, the developers would have to additionally add a script that decides which planets are being attacked. On top of that, they would probably have to develop local co-op, maybe. Like, you can't really play that game on your own. I mean, you could technically, but is that really the same game in that case? Because yeah, you could then argue that the game is no longer what was sold, right? The developers broke the rules. The whole game is designed around up to 4 players, so it's not really the same game if you only can play it on your own, right? But yeah, you can see how it's a little bit of a slippery slope. This movement it should really be divided into 2 parts. The one part would be licensing part, so single player games that are not being sold as games, but instead they're being sold as licenses, and the developers can just shut down the servers and not allow you to play a single player game anymore. And the other part would be live service and MMO games, which are way harder to implement that movement into. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's harder, and it will be harder for especially the small developers like Arrowhead with Helldivers.
Nor should it limit players in their options of what kinds of games they have access to. So, Pirate's rebuttal to the movement is that keeping a live service game online if it's not doing well or has been sunsetted doesn't make financial sense. And it makes more sense to simply kill that game or delist it if it's not doing well to save money on stuff like servers. He also states in the beginning of the video that Pirate used to work at Blizzard Entertainment, and this frankly doesn't surprise me given how he views games through this lens. As some users said in the comments to that same video that he posted, you can...
Yeah, I don't think it's a lens of being ex-Blizzard employee. I think it's just a lens of someone who has some experience with making games.
You can take the employee out of the Blizzard, but you can't take the Blizzard out of the employee. Another would say, I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment, yeah, that checks out. And this one, with quite a few likes, let this be a lesson to the kids. No matter how confidently someone speaks about a topic, they can be wrong about it. Be careful who you decide to accept at face value. I understand what Pirate was trying to say, but it comes off simply as not being interested in what the user wants, but honestly, only what the corporation wants, if that makes sense. And the big controversy here, however, is that this video that I'm speaking about, this one on screen again for a reminder, where I'm also getting all these comments and such from as well, was a major reason why so many people, especially on the European side of gaming, refused to listen or sign the initiative, and therefore many users online are claiming that the death of Stop Killing Games is solely because Pirate Software pushed misinformation in order to kill the movement because it went against his beliefs or his intentions. So this has caused all sorts of content creators to spring up and make videos about this too, effectively turning the Stop Killing Games into a viral movement that has now become that because Pirate Software pretty much decided to spread misinformation surrounding it. Single-player games that are online only are rare, not so rare anymore, not at all, as one user would say. And exactly that, and another user would also say in Pirate's comment section, Valve solved this problem 20 years ago, all of their multiplayer games are playable offline. And they're right, they have. You can still play.
Yes, but Valve is a very special case. I mean, the fact that Steam is probably #1 enemy of a lot of bad things going on in the gaming industry right now shows it. They always placed gamers first. There's less and less of that. So yeah, Valve is a special case. You cannot expect everyone to sacrifice their budget and their monetary gain for a greater good.
Team Fortress 2 and more to this day on Steam if you want to. What I think Pirate's argument boils down to is that he is not thinking about the art and love of video games from the perspective of someone who actually loves and plays video games. He's instead viewing it, ironically, from the same point of view as his former employer, Blizzard.
No. He's viewing it from both sides, as am I. I often, when I'm faced with some kind of, especially polarized things like this, I really try to look at things from both sides, and you really should be doing that. Question everything, look at it from both sides, and then after looking at both sides, decide yourself, why are the people thinking what they're thinking and why they're saying what they're saying, because usually the truth is somewhere in between, right? And if you only look at one side, you get only at most half the truth. Both sides, they have some facts, some truths, and there is some opinions and sometimes even lies on both sides. So you should be looking at every situation from both sides. Look at what they would benefit from saying what they're saying. Because a lot of people are looking to benefit from situations if they can. So yeah, always look at what they could benefit from the situation, why they would say what they're saying, and look for the grain of truth on both sides.
Entertainment, which is that if you're not paying me in microtransactions or subscriptions all the time, why am I catering to you in the first place? Pirate is essentially reducing the art and preservation of video games down to a cold, calculated viewpoint that is honestly nothing but extremely harmful towards video games as a medium.
Yeah, you can also not expect game dev companies to do charity work. They're companies, they have employees that they need to pay. They have bills that they need to pay. And they need money for that. Servers are not running for free. If there's not enough players to support a game, it's quite obvious that they should shut it down. And you might argue that if there is a small community, they could just scale down it. But then you need to consider that these companies also need to care about their reputation. If you ever played on a private server or anything, you know that these usually have a lot of issues. And these companies cannot allow themselves to introduce issues. Imagine if Ubisoft kept server files on the crew longer. They didn't just shut down the servers. They scaled it down, put the server files onto a worse machine, like less powerful machine. And because of that, the game became laggy. There are queues all of a sudden because the server doesn't have as much capacity for players. So there are lags, there are queues, there are disconnects, there are all sorts of troubles right now. Troubles which are normal for private servers, which usually are run on less powerful, weaker machines. So now Ubisoft is doing that. Would you not be outraged that a company like Ubisoft is making a game terrible to play? You would. And it would damage the company reputation, right? I mean, not that Ubisoft has a lot of reputation left to be damaged, but that's a different conversation altogether. So they also need to consider a situation like that.
Doesn't seem to view them as art, but instead as products, as merchandise that he has to push to fill his pockets.
Also, art is also a product. You cannot tell me otherwise. If art isn't a product, then why are you able to buy paintings at art galleries? Why do you need to buy music?
So of course he would have this opinion because he's seemingly cut from the same cloth as the people who also don't care about preserving games either. And these types only want to maintain what makes them money, and anything that falls below a certain profit margin is now instead suddenly not only financially not viable, but should be thrown into non-existence because Pirate Software, or people like him, can't milk you for money from these games in order to keep them operational. This is the problem here, which is that one side views games as these beautiful pieces of art that should be maintained, and then the other side views them like expiring food that needs to be pushed, and when it can't anymore, they just toss it in the dumpster. It's a very sterilized and kind of sad way to look at things. And it's why the backlash towards Pirate Software has been so strong from many content creators and then some. And it's also why, again, he's being blamed for killing Stop Killing Games momentum. Because, like it or not, someone like him has a...
You cannot be mad that he given some people food for thought. You basically are calling everyone subscribed to Pirate Software, everyone who watches him, stupid. You're basically saying that these people cannot think for themselves. They heard him, they have their own brain. You can't always blame other side. Sometimes you need to look at yourself and see that maybe it's not the best what we are trying to push. It might have some issues.
A voice, and he used it not to protect the player but the companies instead. He pretty much told on himself and showed everyone when push comes to shove, he's not for the player or the viewer but the bigwigs who can sign him some checks instead. I kinda lost a lot of respect for Pirate because of this. It's sad to see, especially considering his following is based on him being able to thrive and live off the subscribers, who of course watch his content. It's just sad, man, it really is. But what Pirate fails to understand is that the alternative given by Stop Killing Games is that if these companies refuse to keep these games operational, they should then give the player base the tools to create servers, no matter how small they are, to maintain these games in an online capacity. No, it doesn't mean that you or I could suddenly be able to open a microtransaction store or something in some older game. No, that's not what would happen. But they could...
Actually, that should be illegal. And it is right now. I don't know of a single game with a private server that would legally sell microtransaction that was originally offered by the developers. In copyright law, using someone else's work is treated much less harshly if you're not profiting from it. If you're profiting from it, then it's a problem. Like WinRAR is a very good example of that, because technically to use WinRAR you need a license, right? But WinRAR is not going to chase you as long as you're not making money from using WinRAR. So if you have WinRAR without a license on your computer right now, you're perfectly fine. You technically you are in sort of a gray zone, right? It's technically illegal, but no one is going to enforce that. But if you use WinRAR on your company computer, then WinRAR is gonna chase you if you don't have a license. And it's like that with most, if not all, of copyrighted material, even with pictures online. In a lot of cases, if you find a copyrighted picture online, if you use it and not make money from it, no one is gonna bother. If you want to put that picture on, I don't know, if you want to put it on a website, but you are not advertising anything on the website, it's just a fun website, you will probably be fine, even if the picture is copyrighted. But if you try to benefit from it, gain some money from it, if you try to sell it, if you try to use it for advertising, anything like that, then it will probably end in court. So yeah, microtransactions on private servers should not be legal, even if that passes.
Still at least be kept alive so people can play them if they want to, but Pirate, of course, he thinks this is all pointless, and that the better, more realistic alternative is to just let these games die and rot or be erased from existence like the crew was. And I actually can't believe that this guy is somehow thinking that he's in the right here. Look, I'll make my stance here very clear for everybody watching. I think the preservation of video games, TV, movies, whatever it is, it's really important to me. It's like how back 1,000 years and then some scholars translated and wrote entire books over and over again. for the only reason but to ensure that they were copies of the knowledge that mankind had collected at that point so that we could learn from it in the future. Yet when the Library of Alexandria burned down, we lost so much of human history because of that tragic event hundreds of years ago. And I want you to think of these games, movies, and more kind of like a digital Library of Alexandria, if you will. And that if we allow all of these things to die and cease because Pirate and people like him can't monetize you to hell and back because of it, then we're just committing another sin yet again despite history telling us otherwise. Just because you don't care about this one...
Not necessarily about making money even. It could be just about making enough money to actually support the existence of the game. Like, there is... Okay, I just checked it. There was a game called Victory, The Age of Racing, and it wasn't doing very good. It wasn't doing well enough for the developers to continue developing it. So it was basically abandoned, but before they abandoned it, they said that they are gonna leave it on live support. And all the money that they have left over and all the money that will be further invested by players into the game by the microtransaction shop will go straight into supporting the server that the game is running on. So basically the game was running for as long as there was enough money going into the game to support the server. The players themselves decided if they want to keep that game around or not.
Game or that one movie.
And yeah, would you tell that the developers of that game are greedy because they're not putting their own money to support the game? No, you wouldn't, would you?
Being preserved does not mean that thousands of other people don't. I honestly think this is just a terrible precedent, and I seriously hope that anyone watching this that lives in Europe, that you please, I implore you, go to my description below in this video right now, click that link and sign the petition. Even if you don't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you to not sign a petition. In fact, I will link both this video and the petition down in the description if I can. Because yeah, I'm not gonna tell you to not sign it. I'm not gonna tell you to sign it. You can decide on your own if you want to sign it or not.
Don't necessarily care either way. I just want you to know that your signature will be at the benefit of millions of other players. And all you need to do is ensure that future becomes a reality by signing it. It'll take you like 1 minute or less, guys. Come on, just go and sign it. Look, guys, okay? Video games matter. My whole channel is about protecting them and documenting all the weird ways the industry has gone down to either save or destroy them. I care way too much about video games to not talk about this myself, and unfortunately, I'm not a European resident. So I can't personally sign the petition, but if you are, please go do it. We have to ensure that games are preserved. So I hope this video has taught you why we need to come together here and hopefully save these video games, because it doesn't just affect games 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. We should come together. We should work on saving video games, but I don't think that's the way to do it. And I really think that issue should be separated. If that whole thing was about single player games, there would be literally no conversation about it. It would just go straight into legislation, probably. It wouldn't even last a year for them to gather enough signatures under the petition.
Years old or more, it affects the games you're playing even now or in the future. Do you really want more power in the hands of people that care nothing for your favorite hobby? Like, it's actually insane how, as this Rock Paper Shotgun article states, which reads, 70% of games with online requirements are doomed according to Stop Killing Games survey. What's crazy is of that 739 list of games I shared earlier where they were labeled either alive, dead, and so on, that 299 of those games, they were dead already. Almost 300 of 739 games dead because publishers just frankly don't care enough to keep them alive. Isn't that insane? What's even more concerning is that 313 of those games were at risk of joining that 299 list to also be dead as well, putting this list of 739 games at a staggering 70% plus or more risk of being lost forever, simply because of negligence or server upkeep. I should also mention that offline single-player games are too a part of this list as well. That's why games like Mass Effect 3 are listed amongst the games. As Rock Paper Shotgun puts it here, the fact that so many games with online requirements are dead is hardly surprising. Largely publicly traded companies are, after all, fueled by profits rather than goodwill. They gain little from ensuring that those games remain playable once they're no longer part of the active portfolio. And it's exactly this. When the fate of these games are in the hands of 99% of the time anyway, of people who don't even play games but are simply in the business of profiteering off of them, what can you really expect? And the preservation of games matters like anything else, but I think being cold or indifferent to something like this is more so just proving how little some types really care about the medium of video games as a whole. Video games do not just exist to make money, and I hate how corporatized and shallow it has become for most. And it's all because of situations like this that it could possibly lead to less online games in the future, which might be a win for some, but I don't think it's good either way. We should want games to be playable no matter what and not less, but what do you think? Thank you for watching, everyone. Please consider signing it, subscribe to if you want to keep up to date on video games, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
Like I said in the beginning, I kind of agree with both sides. And like I was saying, I'm gonna put the link to a petition down in the description. You can decide on your own if you want to sign it or not. And I will also add the link to the video. So Endymion, I hope you don't mind my reactions. I really enjoyed his videos in general. He's a very good guy, good opinions. A bit strong sometimes. But yeah, that was my 2 cents. And yeah, bye!